The Beekeeper is directed by David Ayer and stars Jason Statham as a beekeeper named Adam Clay, who has a shadowy history and elite skills which he uses to avenge the death of his friend. In doing so, he inadvertently gets the attention of some very powerful people with government connections, and Clay finds himself having to face deadly opponents to reach the man he believes is responsible for the death of his friend. Welcome to Ghost or Toast, where I, Ghost Host, your ghost host, use my knowledge as a filmmaker to let y'all know if a movie is ghost, which is good, or toast, which is bad. Today, the subject of our analysis is the movie The Beekeeper, which is a movie that a lot of people might not have even known was coming out. I don't know if it was just me, but I almost saw no advertising for this film. But if you're watching this review, then you must want to know what I thought about it. And like always, I will first break down the positives and negatives I had with this movie before giving an overarching review and my final verdict. So with all of that out of the way, let's start the review. As always, Statham shines as the unstoppable action star and gives a great performance as Adam Clay. As an action movie, it's important to make sure that the action in your film is top-notch and well executed, and I thought that The Beekeeper did a great job in that department. I did have a few gripes with certain points in the action sequences, which I will get into in the negative parts of the review, but for the most part, if you like action and like Statham running through a bunch of different dudes trying to take him down, then you will probably enjoy the fight scenes in this movie. It didn't do anything unique or different in the action department, but the choreography was very solid and the editing did not detract from those action sequences, which is definitely a big plus in a movie whose central selling point is the action. Another thing I loved was the energy and personality a lot of these characters had, especially Josh Hutcherson's character. He was oozing with charisma and style. And sometimes in a movie like this, the writers will just make everyone dull, serious, and threatening with little to no emotion or definable traits. But this movie did not fall into that trap, as each character has their own temperament and carries themselves in a unique way that gives them memorability and distinction, which was nice. Now, with that being said, none of the characters were written particularly compellingly or had meaningful arcs, but that's not exactly the emphasis or not exactly necessary in an action flick, so the film gets a pass for me in that regard. Other than that, I felt like The Beekeeper was shot well. Again, nothing special, but the film does not drop the ball visually, with lots of bright colors mixed into the color palette and non-distracting angles. Having covered what I thought were some of the film's finer aspects, it's time to get into some of the negatives I have for The Beekeeper. The story for The Beekeeper is nothing new. A very tried and true plot structure in Hollywood for an action movie. A former elite assassin guy, played by a big action star, is retired and living a quiet life, but then some bad guys mess with him and he goes on a killing rampage to get revenge. Now, I for one am a moviegoer who does enjoy variety and unconventional stories, but I also like typical stories if they are done extremely well. That being said, I thought The Beekeeper's narrative was alright, but just being alright combined with the fact that it's a story we've seen done so many times before, and a story that we have seen done so many times better before, I'll give it a slight knock for having a fun but ultimately cliched and predictable story. I said I would get back to this point earlier in the video, but I had a few gripes with some of the action sequences in this movie. The choreography and all was fine, but there were some frustrating elements, at least for me, and I'll quickly get into them here. There are several times where Statham's character will just waltz up to opponents and very calmly speak with them and let them draw weapons and such on him, and it sort of works the first time he does it because it's unique and oh wow, he's really confident in himself, walking up to two armed men and showing no fear while calmly addressing them. But later on in the movie, it just gets to extreme and idiotic levels. There's a moment where there is an entire CIA tactical force with military-grade weapons setting up a perimeter around this building to stop Statham, and Statham just walks right up into their huddle and starts calmly speaking with them and toying with them, and he just ends up taking one of their guns and fighting them all off. But for me personally, it was just so idiotic. At any point, any one of these guys could have just drawn a weapon, shot him, tackled him. He just gives up any tactical advantage or element of surprise that he could have had and just puts himself himself in an extremely vulnerable position for no reason. And there are other times, for instance, near the end, where every single person in the government is basically looking for this guy. He just casually walks around this party that has the guy he wants to kill in it, when the entire place is swarming with agents and assassins who are all looking for him. It just doesn't really make a lot of sense. This even backfires in the film because he ends up getting recognized and pinned down and almost killed because of this. So it just does not really make a single ounce of sense. He's just blatantly walking around in the open with no kind of mask or disguise. And it's not just these two instances. Almost every fight scene starts with Statham making himself extremely vulnerable unnecessarily and then fighting his way out of it. It just felt really dumb after like the first 2 times that he did this. There are some really campy or corny scenes and lines in this film. Obviously the laughable to be or not to be line from the trailer, but another one that comes to mind for me was towards the beginning, the bad guys who are digital scammers trick this lady into giving them her passwords and allowing them to have access to her computer. That's all believable and all, but the way they depict it is just campy and very basic to me. Like the lead scammer guy is walking this lady through the scam and he's talking to all the other people working the phones like, alright, this is how you pull this scamming tactic. And oh yeah, now let's steal her password. And once we've done that, we'll be able to empty out all of her bank accounts. Like it just comes across as really weird that he is telling all of these scammers how to scam. Like they already know. It's just clearly so that the audience can understand what's going on and be spoon-fed info, but it just makes the entire scene corny, especially with how bad and fake some of the graphics for this scam look. There's one last thing I want to criticize, but it is sort of a minor spoiler, so if you don't want to hear that, skip to the time indicated on the screen. So towards the end, the movie reveals that there's actually this super secret organization that has all the best gear and plenty of resources called the Beekeepers. Apparently, it was founded by someone from the government a long time ago who decided that there needed to be an elite strike force to correct the wrongs in American society, and that they needed to exist outside of the government's control, like not as a government agency. And somehow that was just greenlit, but get this, it gets better. So these guys are the most elite of the elite, so crazy elite that Jeremy Irons' character says that even a team of 24 former Navy SEALs and special ops guys has almost zero chance of taking one down. But these beekeepers can basically do whatever they want and they can act with no orders and at their own discretion. I'm sorry, bro. No organization is going to let that happen. The best agents in the world with access to plenty of resources, but they can just do whatever they want? I'm not buying that. And it's so dumb because then people start using beekeeper language to describe Statham's actions, like he's protecting the hive and is turning into Queen Killer Bee, since that is a thing apparently. It just sounds so cringe hearing all this bee dialogue used to describe this elite assassin. And look, I know the movie is called The Beekeeper, but this part of the film just did not work for me. I found it corny, distracting, and sure, it was unique, like there's not really another film that does this, but it was ultimately just gimmicky in my opinion. Like the only reason it was there was to make this secret division of government assets different from all the other secret divisions of government assets in other action movies. So in conclusion, The Beekeeper is most certainly a product of its genre, and if you know what you are getting into and are expecting exciting action with minimal character development and a basic and predictable story, then you will most likely enjoy it. It's not a great movie by any means, but it was not trying to be. All it was attempting to do was be an entertaining action flick to be consumed for 2 hours and then forgotten about a few days later. It was a close decision for me, but I will ultimately give The Beekeeper a toast rating. It's not a horrible film, but if I am being honest, it's not a great movie either. And although it does succeed at being an action movie, it does nothing unique enough or well enough for me personally to give it a ghost rating. But hey, it's the best movie I've seen this year, which really isn't saying much considering that Night Swim is its only competition. By the way, you can check out my review for that movie. Link will be in the description of this video. Anyways, I've been Ghost Host, your Ghost Host, and I hope you enjoyed my review. If you did, then make sure to leave a like as it really helps out in the algorithm, and subscribe and turn on that bell to stay notified for whenever I drop a new upload. Maybe give beekeepers a little more respect from now on, and I'll see you all on the next one. Have a great day.